settling into your posture, one of the real valuable tools of meditation is just being still, the physical stillness. Really helps the awareness to sharpen and the mind to become more calm. And when we're each in our own separate space without the kind of peer pressure or sense of being around others, it's maybe a little harder to maintain that stillness. So I want to just encourage you as you're practicing this morning to work with stillness in the body. Letting the body soften. Having a sense of release. Tuning into the subtle ways that we hold tension in the body. And even as you sit upright, that there's a letting go, a relaxation. So that all helps us to have a sense of arriving and the awareness coming into the body. There's an aspect of this practice that's like a stripping away the ordinary ways of being, stripping away the thoughts, the projections, the perceptions, and being with something very simple. Whereas there might be a tendency to think of meditation as something lofty, instead to think of it as something in the ground. The body, the simplicity of body. You don't have to look for anything special. So the simplest activity of life is the breath. This becomes our focal point. connecting with the sensations of breath. Again, not looking for some special experience or lofty mind state. Just feeling the air at the nostrils by the movement of the belly. And just having a sense of ease, of simplicity. Of course, our minds are not so simple. Our emotional life can seem very complicated. Our mental life, elaborate. Lost in winding thoughts. But when we can learn to ground ourselves in something simpler, it allows us to have some space in relation to that complexity, be able to observe it without being so caught in it. Our practice involves trying to establish this simple awareness, grounded awareness. And then noticing when it's lost. seeing that, feeling that, then coming back to the simplicity of breath. This has the immediate benefit of calming us in the present moment, and then the long-term benefit of training us to find our way back more easily, more habitually, so that our lives aren't spent caught in the complications of mind. I apologize for the alert or whatever that was that interrupted. Something have not been able to figure out what it is. One of the applications. And if anybody was watching, or if anybody watches the video of this, you might notice that I jumped at one point. My bell fell off. My bell was sitting on this thing, and it fell off and hit me. It scared the hell out of me. I thought there was like a rabbit in my room or something. It was just one of those like, I think that might indicate a lack of something on my part, but not to judge. Anyway, it is the perils of teaching from the couch. So we're in the last couple sections of step 3 in One Breath at a Time, and so I guess Walt said he read Balancing Faith and Wisdom, which is sort of one of 3 sections on this topic at the end of the chapter. And as that section, I think, mentions, maybe it doesn't, that's part of the 5 spiritual faculties that I think I've mentioned before, that balance, faith needs to be balanced by wisdom. Wisdom needs to be balanced by faith. And then energy needs to be balanced with concentration, vice versa. And then the 5th spiritual faculty is mindfulness, of course. So this section is called Too Much Wisdom, and I have to say that kind of the I start with this idea. I'm starting these 3 sections with the idea, kind of drawing from this language of the spiritual faculties, wisdom and faith. But particularly here, where I'm talking about wisdom, I'm not exactly talking about wisdom. I'm talking more about sort of intellectualism. I think the only place I've heard that word is in the Sheryl Crow song. He is high on intellectualism. Yeah, it's actually a really good song, Soak Up the Sun. Musical references, it's one of the habits of my mind. So it's really more here contrasting the tendency to get too into your head and try to figure out spiritual concepts or overthink spiritual concepts. And specifically, since we're in step 3, this is kind of confronting the problem of God, of the problem people have with the concept of God and how they're going to work with that. I have my notes on this. And that I take this, and my approach to the steps has always really been, how does this work? What's the practical meaning or application of this, rather than trying to turn it into an intellectual exercise. And of course, then, because the problem is skeptical doubt, the fifth hindrance, that when the starting point of this problem around God is this idea that a skeptical doubt, the 5th hindrance, is one that's kind of starting from a place of resistance, starting from a place of not just questioning, but resisting is really the best way to put it. and so clearly, there needs to be some kind of openness, and this isn't to say that we shouldn't maintain, we shouldn't be intelligent, that we shouldn't think about things, but that there are ways in which we defeat ourselves and undermine the process. Um, typical uh, version of this in Buddhism is when people try to engage and sort of argue about the question of self and not self. Oh, well, I heard the Buddha says there's no self. Well, and then sort of get into some kind of a argument that's both intellectual and maybe philosophical, but more just trying to like logically take something apart that isn't really so much a logical question, although there's a logic to it, but that what Buddhism is always doing is asking us to be with an experience and look at the experience. I mean, we can deconstruct self into its component parts and thereby say, well, there's no solid thing. But the deeper meaning is the experience of not being something solid. I remember early in my Buddhist practice um, talking to an American who was ordained as a Tibetan Buddhist, so as a Tibetan monk, and saying, well, if everything is impermanent, then impermanence must be impermanent too. And I could tell he just kind of wanted to slap me. It was like, come on, like that's the sort of silly kind of logic, but that just takes us off the track, derails the process. This isn't what the process isn't about. Trying to, pursue some steps of logic. And I've never studied philosophy, but from the little bit I read from time to time, you can see that there are certain sort of approaches to philosophy that follow something like that. That it might be an interesting thing to think, but it's completely useless, right? And what this practice and what these steps are about is how to live and how to overcome suffering, not how to, parse out these, how many, as we said, when I was a kid, the expression was how many angels can fit on the head of a pin, which I don't know if people say that anymore, but it's just this absurd, idea. Well, angels, like, angels don't take up space. They're like angels. So, how many can fit on the head of a pin? It's absurd. And the next section of the book, which I'm not going to get into today because we only take one at a time, but addresses kind of the other side of this, and that's why I talk about this as balancing, and balancing faith and wisdom. So there's potential to sort of overdo the faith too, to not use your mind, to not be thoughtful. And so it's important to say that that's not the place we're trying to get to either. And both as an addict and as a Buddhist, there's a reasoning behind this. As an addict, there's this tendency to go to extremes and to kind of want, like, well, what's the one answer? Okay, just figure it all out, or just let everything go, just trust everything. And but the Buddha talks about the middle way. So this is a great example of the middle way, of really saying, I need to engage intellectually, but I need to keep my heart open and be willing to accept things, explore things that I don't quite understand, or that even sort of I have an argument against. but stay open and keep looking, keep learning. And that is really apparent in this moment around Black Lives Matter. You know, that was it's clearly many of us. I certainly had a certain amount of resistance to that phrase when I first heard it, and clearly, you know, when you just look at the polling on it, you know, there was a lot of resistance in at least in American culture to that. Although there was, you know, it wasn't rejected by any means 100%. But now there's a tremendous amount of people opening to that, and that to me is really about being open and not just taking a stance. And of course, coming back to the steps and coming back to the idea of God, this is something that every person who works the steps has to deal with, and it's kind of something that sponsors and the fellowships kind of pass on this wisdom of just stay open and keep looking, see how this can work for you. You know, see how the step says God as you understood him. Like, you know, what could that mean for you? And of course, my work has been so much around this question of what that means, and particularly what it means to turn it over. And as I've talked about many times, my interest in step 3 is not about what is God, but rather what does it mean to turn my will and my life over, and particularly what does it mean in Buddhist terms to turn my will and my life over. And that's where then we get down to this practical question, not trying to figure it out or intellectualize it, but rather that we try to solve the problem of suffering. So I will go back to the book a little bit just to talk about, you know, this is another place where I have this little vignette, little story about getting a phone call, and the person that I call Lee in here is somebody who's become a friend, actually. And, you know, and he was somebody who really rejected the God idea and was really turned off by that. And he was struggling with a serious cocaine addiction and alcoholism. You know, and it's always, you know, kind of, I guess I just think it's sort of ridiculous to think, oh, well, I can't get sober because there's a step that says God. You know, it's like, really? Okay. Maybe you're getting ahead of yourself. Maybe you should do step 1. Step 1 doesn't say anything about God. Anyway. So I kind of go through with him here how he, some of these questions, like, you know, what about step 1? Do you believe you're powerless? And sort of trying to ease him, and obviously I'm using a lot of the standard things that are said in around the 12-step world about kind of that God isn't you, and that, you know, it's just a suggestion. So I'll read this little section here. It's on page 78. Frankly, there are all kinds of reasons not to believe in God, scientific and otherwise. Certainly trying to prove to a skeptic the existence of God is fruitless. I take the idea of God as more of a practical one. It helps me. Believing in God, and I put believing in quotes, believing in God allows me to see that I'm not in control of the world, that there is a value in committing wholeheartedly to a spiritual and moral path, that it's possible to have a sense of safety in an inherently unstable world. So I practice this step for myself, not for God, not for a religion, not even because I think there is a God. None of that matters. What matters is that I need the higher power idea to stay sober and to be free from self-centered suffering. In Buddhism, the hindrance of skeptical doubt is considered to be the most dangerous. Doubt has the ability to completely derail our spiritual work. If we lose faith, we might give up. Doubt typically appears in three different ways: doubt of the teachings, doubt of the teacher, doubt of self. Lee's doubt was of the teachings of step 3 in a higher power. With this kind of a resistance, you cannot learn or progress on the path. The antidote to any of these forms of doubt is firstly practice. Try it out for yourself. Don't take anyone's word for it. In 12-step programs, we say act as if, which means dropping our doubt just long enough to see if there's any value in what people and the steps are suggesting. We can do this with Buddhism as well. One teacher uses pretend meditation when teaching children. He tells them, close your eyes, sit still, and pretend you're meditating. What's the difference between this and, quote, real meditation? Nothing that I can see. For the doubter, it's helpful to study the teachings from a variety of sources so that a clear understanding is established. We don't have to swallow it all whole. We can take what we need and leave the rest. I like that one about the pretend meditation. You know, I remember reading it. Some skeptics essay, article, whatever it was, about how meditation doesn't do anything. He said, well, and I think he said that there'd been a study that showed that if someone just sat there with their eyes closed for an hour, the same thing, they got the same benefit as if they meditated for an hour. And I was like, well, what did you think we were doing? It's all we're doing anyway. It's like there's something exotic happening. Well, I don't know, when they're meditating, they're doing something special. No, we're just sitting there with our eyes closed. I'll say too, as long as I'm sort of on the topic of doubt, that in the commentaries in the Theravada commentaries, it says that the antidote to doubt is to study the teachings more, which just essentially what they're saying is that if you doubt this, then you just don't understand what's being taught. Like, you just need to really understand it, which seems a little, it's not exactly arrogant, but it's sort of, makes this assumption, oh, we're right, you just don't understand it yet. And so I've found that a little bit off-putting. Whereas because what I think is it's to practice more rather than to study more, but each to their own. The commentators have their own ideas, and they probably know more than me, so I don't know. Let's open it up. I think that's enough for me right now. I'd like to hear any comments, questions, thoughts, reflections from y'all out there in Zoom land. Just unmute yourself if you want to speak. Richie, I see you have your hand up.
Hi, Kevin.
Hello.
Nice to be here. Nice to be back. I just came back from a silent retreat.
Okay.
In Belgium.
With other people?
The silent retreat was in a Goenka Vipassana center in Belgium. Mm. And we were with all the COVID measurements. So normally they have 100 students. This time was 30 students.
Okay.
And we were with 6 servers. I was the kitchen manager. It was quite an experience.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have you sat in that style before, the Goenka retreat?
I served already 6 times, and I already did sati and 5 long 10 days courses.
Great.
So yeah, I'm now up to the 20 and 30 days.
All right, getting serious. Beautiful.
Yes. I wanted to tell you that it's possible. It's really like everybody's with masks for the servers, and the students are they are without masks, and everything went okay. It was so incredible. Nobody ever coughed or sneezed in the whole course. In the whole
Good.
10 days, I didn't hear a cough.
Well, you're in the part of the world where you got a little bit more, a lot more, you know, progress than we have here. We've done a very poor job, unfortunately. But thank you for that, letting us know that that's happening. It's
And
good to know that.
I wanted to tell you to thank you for this duel.
Oh, great. Thank you.
It came one day before the silent retreat. I took it with me,
Oh,
and it was so helpful because it's so little said about meta,
yeah.
and you hit the spot here. I'm already in chapter 2. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you. In case
About
you don't know what he's holding up, that's my book, Living Kindness.
yes,
Yeah, about loving kindness practice. Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Richie. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any endorsements are appreciated. Uh, Yun Sung in Virginia. Hello.
Hi, my name is
Hi.
Insan. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's my first time at this group. Um, I'm a regular at 12-step meetings and a Buddhist recovery program that's fairly new, uh, Recovery Dharma, which used to be Refuge Recovery. But I'm grateful. I've been reading your book, One Breath at a Time, and it's third step. For me, like in Buddhist language, like taking refuge in the Buddha Dharma Sangha is my third step on a daily basis. And I mean, I've been sober and clean from substances, you know, many 24 hours, but as far as like applying the precepts help me stay sane
Yeah.
and not to cause harm. Like I can be abstinent from substances and still like act like a crazy person, you know. How I mindfully use technology to my sexual conduct, to honesty and dishonesty in my dealings at work, family, you know? So to me, like the third step or taking refuge is actually living out the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path like on a daily basis. And I don't have to do that by myself, that I have a Sangha, that I have other people walking the path with me, whether that be in the, I think of the fellowship as my Sangha, but not everyone like follows a Buddhist path. So it's really helpful to find people in recovery that are also using the Buddhist path to find freedom from this. So
Yeah.
I can listen to this more. So I'm just grateful to be here and thank you for your teachings. And I think you started integrating Buddhism into the recovery and full step. Like I've been on that quest on myself, and then I realized, well, like there are other people that are doing this. That like I'm not alone in this. That I can integrate because like sometimes I feel that a lot of people been harmed by 12-step programs just because they have a different conception of a power greater than themselves. For me, like the Sangha Buddha Dharma is my higher power. That is a power greater than me. So I'm able to take refuge and turn it over, like in 12-step language, to my will and life over to the Buddha Sangha Dharma.
Yeah.
So
Thank
thank
you.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. Absolutely. I mean, I think uh, I agree. I mean, I think refuge is the clearest corollary with step three, and then so it what Noah did with that book was very smart. And also, I think your point about what I think you're distinguishing being sober from being in recovery, the precepts. I think that's a great way of kind of characterizing the essence of it. Is that uh, are you following the precepts? Are you really living uh, that? It's just you know in precept terms, are you just practicing the fifth precept, or are you practicing all five precepts? And that's where we, are challenged, and that's where real, much broader change happens. As well as, I mean, I guess for me, refuge and dharma is also kind of what keeps me sane, because dharma helps me to keep perspective on the world, on what is really true in the world. And when I always remember impermanence, I remember the causes of dukkha. I understand craving causes suffering, and letting go brings some freedom. Then, um, I, I wind up, just not being so caught in everything. It just gives me that perspective. There's somebody who's like, maybe should mute themselves because there's like some kind of a noise coming through. I don't want to mute everybody, but anyway. Yeah, that's better. Don't know where that was. And I also, my microphone is right beside my computer, and so I'm not sure if sometimes when someone's speaking, it's like feeding back. If that's a problem, let me know, and I could switch over um, to earbuds at some point. Um, so very nice. People are raising their hands today. That's nice. Jonathan, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, I really appreciate this group. A friend that just told me about it this morning. I had no idea this was happening. Yeah, I read your book a couple years ago upon suggestion of someone that was mentoring me at the time, and yeah, like at that point, I'd really just begun exploring Buddhism and the Dharma. It was like had firm roots in 12-step recovery, but I was from a small town and didn't have exposure to much other than traditional stuff. And then when I just like devoured this book. So it's cool to be like able to study it, like be in this format and study it again, because I didn't study it. I just like tore through it. It just spoke to me, right? And there's like lots of gems. There's been about like seeing in hindsight like how crazy and dysfunctional I really was. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but like as a fog lifts in sobriety, right? Like I think about like just like some of the like when I got clean, I was like, yeah, well, obviously I was shooting dope all the time. Like this is obviously a problem. I'm going to jail, yada yada, right? I couldn't deny it anymore. But some of the things in early recovery, I still was like, there's a lot of dust in my eyes, right? I was able to confuse myself. But looking back, I'm like, man, like the way I interacted with women was totally bonkers. Like I was starting relationships everywhere all the time. Like I couldn't be not doing it. And at the time I was like, yeah, it's not really that bad. Like am I really hurting anybody? And my girlfriend's like, yes, you're hurting me all the time.
Wow.
And I'm like, damn. So just, and something else you just said when you were sharing too about like step 3 and just surrendering to the process. And I don't know why it struck me so hard today. I mean, I'm, beginner mind, I guess, but surrendering just to surrender to the process and not having it anything to do with God. And I can still get so caught up in that, right? Like, and it was just a nice reminder, and I really appreciated this place and this space. So that's all I got. Thanks.
Thanks, Jonathan. That's great. Yeah, and I mean, I think you're talking about the third precept when you talk about the relationships and sexuality, and that was a huge part, for me in my early recovery, and really just the beautiful thing about the precepts is that we don't think of them as these narrow concepts that we like legalistically interpret them to see what we can get away with. It's just the opposite. We're like expand it in the broadest terms, and that's when they become a part of recovery. They're not just doing not breaking the rules, but they're really these contemplations that continue to inform us. I wanted to mention, because Yun Sung mentioned that he does the 3 additional precepts on the Upasak observance days. So I imagine there's some people who don't know what that's referring to. So if you don't mind, I will just mention what those are. Uh, the key one, I think the one that everybody thinks of, is that we don't eat any food after noon, and that's the way the Theravada monks live on a daily basis. But then they suggest that the observance days, those are they're like on each quarter of the moon. Is that right? Once a week. If you want to chime in, and so that's you're welcome to. But the and so there's one of those precepts is to not sleep on a high beds, which is sort of like some kind of anachronistic thing, but it had to do with sort of pride. And then the other is, I think, around jewelry and sort of embellishment, like makeup and things like that. But the main one is that people basically fast after noon. So you just have a breakfast, or you can have your a lunch meal, but you have it before. And if you're in daylight savings, you can have your meal up until 1 o'clock. So, but after that, you don't eat for the rest of the day. So that's a kind of, and it gives you more time to meditate, basically. And the monks spend more time in practice on those days. Anyway, I thought some people might be confused by what that was. So maybe there's still a couple people hand up. Tom, on your iPhone. Is he still here? Oh, there you are. Hi. I can't hear you, even though you're not muted. So I'm not sure why that is. No, your microphone isn't working for some reason.
Like this.
All right.
Is this working?
Yeah, that's working. That's fine.
Okay. All right. I wanted to thank you for the meditation. I really, and also happy 35 years.
Oh, thank you.
As I understand, it's half your life being sober. So congratulations for that.
Thank you.
You've been given the world such a gift with your writings. I noticed during the meditation, or you mentioned the words intellectual. He's high on intellectualism.
Yeah.
And then you brought up the song "Soaking Up the Sun."
Right.
Oh no.
Yeah. I lost you there. Well, maybe he'll come back. I actually wanted to mention, while I have a little space in here, that a lot of you are with me regularly, and so when we meditate and I give some guidance, I kind of I do little variations most times on my instruction, because I figure if people are with me all the time, that it's not that helpful to just say the same thing every time. So one of my purposes in that is to, if there's something that kind of lands, I'm hoping that somebody gets something each time, like, oh, wait, I never thought of it that way. So I kind of emphasize little subtle differences. And so if something kind of gets you, like, hold on to that one, right? Like, remember, like, oh, that, I'm just going to do that.
Oh no, sorry, I got interrupted, and
I lost you, Tom.
Yeah, it was awesome the way you had said high on intellectualism, and then I was like, that's not the right song, and I went to go look up Under the Sun, and then I was like, I like the words. It's not getting what you want; it's loving what you got from that song. And Soaking Up the Sun. And the other song was Every Day is a Windy Road, and then I was like, right now I'm trying to be high on intellectualism at this moment. I thought that was
right. By getting into like analyzing all the lyrics, yes.
I'm like, this is proving nothing. But I did want to invite you. I'm part of this the Recovery Dharma Conference Committee, And we would be very interested in asking you to speak as a speaker for an hour if you'd be curious in that. And I
How
can leave
much
you
does
my
that
contact.
pay, Tom? No,
Oh yeah, about yeah.
So,
There's
yeah,
probably a stipend with it. An honorarium.
no, I'm kidding, please. Just email me. You know, you can email me through my website.
Okay.
I'll put my email address or into the chat, but right on my front page of my website is a contact.
Appreciate that, Kevin.
Can I type? But you know, I've been told that I heard that Recovery Dharma was banning my books, so I don't know. Not sure it's going to be safe.
That is not true. Not true.
Hey, Kevin.
Yes. One more.
And
Yeah. Is that Nick or no?
I'm in Recovery Dharma too, and we actually have a kind of an offshoot group, 12 Steps in the Buddhism, and going through some of your writings. So there are people that find both programs very good, and you've assisted us in doing that.
Oh, good. I mean, I certainly don't think that. Well, let me put it in positive terms. Whatever works for people, you know. Some people can blend Buddhism and 12 steps. Some people just can't deal with 12 steps. And, you know, if they're working a program of some kind, we could call the program whatever, as long as they're getting the benefits of recovery and not using, then I'm all for it. I years ago I felt some like, oh wait, refuge recovery is going to like take away from me or something. And then I realized like that's like, well, I mean, first of all, I realized like that was just very selfish, but I also quickly saw that very few people were kind of in separate slots, you know, or we're all just kind of trying to get through this stuff. And so that's cool. So there's your meeting. So Angela, we've been saving the chat, but I haven't always been posting it though. I guess I should be posting it on my website, right? I can do that. But for those who want to, you can just save the chat for yourselves by clicking on the little, at least on my screen, on my Mac, it's in the chat, there's where you're going to type in, there's a little 3-dot menu. You click on that, it says save chat. So if you ever want to just save some reference that was in here.
Someone asked in the chat about wanting to buy your books, where's the best place to,
well,
those, and I'm gonna post the your website and the Donna information right now, if that's okay.
Cool. Yeah. You can't really buy them through me per se. When I give a live workshop or retreat, I bring some along, but pretty much with bookstores closed, I try to order things through my local bookstore just so that I'm, supporting them. So we have in Berkeley, we have Pegasus, and I just call them or email them, and they even have their own website, but obviously everything's available on Amazon. And 2 of my books, the self-published books, are really only available through Amazon, sadly. That's just such an efficient way to self-publish that I've, bought into the enormity of them. Let's just do a moment of metta before we close. And I should mention that this Friday will be on the Spirit Rock Zoom rather than my Zoom. So that starts a little later at 7:15 on Friday. and there I'm not going with the book at that class. I'm just kind of doing a generic, whatever Buddhist recovery topic. And well, often it will be step oriented, but anyway, that's this Friday, 7:15. So if you go to spiritrock.org, you can get the link, and the link is also on my website, on my Zoom page. So let's just sit for a minute to close. And just coming back into the body. You take a moment of gratitude for this Sangha, for each other. I really like to send out thoughts of compassion and care to those who are suffering from COVID-19. And that we may find a healing, physical and spiritual. And that wisdom will arise through the realization that we are all connected. We're connected through our breath. Our breath keeps us alive, but even with this disease, our breath spreads disease. We are not separate. We're part of this one organism of Earth, one organism of the universe. May we find a way to live in harmony, peace, and love towards each other, letting go of greed, of judgment and hatred, all harm. May all beings be free from the suffering of addiction. May we live freedom, free from suffering. All right, my friends, thank you for joining me this morning, this afternoon, this evening, whatever time it is. Be well, stay safe, wear a mask. I'll see you on Friday or next week.
Thank you, Kevin.
Okay.
Thank you, Kevin. Bye. Thanks. Bye.
You be safe too, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Kevin.